Thank you for tuning in to the Mental Health Wealth Podcast. My name is Kee Ford, and today we have a special guest with us. We have Eric Garner, who's my brother in Christ, also who is the host of the Make It Plain podcast. Had to throw that shameless plug in for us. And every time, when we start this show, we always give a disclaimer that the things that are expressed here, we are not saying we're the ones who are diagnosing anyone. So if any of these things meet your criteria, hey, go seek out mental health help or from your local medical professionals or PCP. Now, we have a very interesting topic today because this is a topic that I feel like if not everyone, if I was a gambling man, I would say about high 90 percentile that some of us face or are currently facing or have faced in the past, and that is burnout. Now, when you think about burnout is just that stress that comes from the tedious task of the day. You doing something over and over again, and you continue to go and go and go and go, and sometimes we don't take breaks for ourselves. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where it is very taxing on our body, and then it taxes our mental, and then it also sometimes affects our health. So we got Eric today, and I'm going to let Eric give a little introduction of himself and to show you to just bring him onto this platform for those who don't know Eric. Eric, give the people a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Eric Garner, and as Keith stated, I'm the host of the Make It Plain show that we have with my good friend and good brother Kee Ford and also Cameron Freeman, in a show that we do for GBN, and so we would certainly appreciate you guys checking that out on the app or the YouTube channel or on Facebook. But I do host that. I'm an assistant principal for a high school. Secularly, I preach for the Ottawa Church of Christ. I'm a father. I'm a husband. Family member. So I hold several. I wear several hats. So burnout is a really good topic that I think I might be able to share some information about.
And that's the reason I really, outside of your knowledge and then just everything you have going on, have a lot of respect for Eric. And I know that the hats that he wears, it's a juggle. And sometimes it can be a very daunting task and can be very tiresome. But hey, we make this thing work. So when we dive into it today for this episode, we're going to have this in a series of 3 episodes. So we're going to do today, starting off looking at burnout from our personal lives. Now, I know one thing for myself, and you've heard me mention it on this podcast before. We experienced a house fire in 2020, August the 17th of 2020. And man, we lost everything. But one thing that happened that was so amazing, man, those congregations in that area and brethren everywhere. Some of you who probably watched this, congregations just throughout the United States, everyone came to our aid. And we didn't have a moment to even go without Joey Farrell, a very good brother. Joey had a place for us to stay within like 4 hours of it happening. Like we didn't want for anything. We didn't have a moment to even be sad. But you know what? When I go back and I play it over in my head and to think about how that situation happened, and really didn't realize that I hadn't dealt with it yet. We're going to do a segment on grief. And one of the things that I found out about burnout and correlation with grief, that grief deserves respect. And if we don't respect grief, man, it'll eat us up. The same thing is true with burnout. If we don't respect that burnout will put us in a situation where we've gone too far or we're in a place where we don't want to be at. So I say that to say I didn't properly realize that I was burnt out after the house fire because, man, I was doing everything. And maybe 2 Sundays ago, man, I was preaching and I actually thought about it. And, man, I started crying. Like, I've never cried in the pulpit like that. So don't tell anybody because I'm supposed to be a gangster. But, it resonated with me that, man, just think about all the things that I had been through and just the go that I didn't take time for self. Eric, you have any thoughts like that or anything you've experienced like that?
Yeah, man, it's when I think about burnout personally, I always think about the society that we live in, and all of the things that vie for our attention, and all of the distractors that our society provides. And I think because we will discuss this from a biblical perspective. And when you consider first century church and the people who lived in the first century, and especially those who were, Jewish or who had become Christians, they didn't necessarily have the conveniences of being distracted like we do in this current society. And this is not just a phenomena that is kind of specific to America. You see this all over the world, man. Our kids now, we're putting kids in sports at such early ages, trying to engage them and keep them engaged in so many things and so many extracurriculars. Well, it's not just your child that is involved in that extracurricular. It's also you. You have to do the transporting. You have to make the money to pay the fees. You have to buy all of the equipment, and you have to spend the time. You just don't want to drop them off. Or if you are too busy, to be involved in that aspect of their lives, then you're passing them off to somebody else while you go and do something else. And so, and I just use that one example to show that we live in a time and in a society where it's very easy to burn yourself out. Like, it's very easy with all good intentions to stretch yourself to a point to where burnout just has to be, it just has to be the necessary conclusion. Again, man, when you consider everything that is fighting for our attention and things we have to choose to give our attention to, burnout, it's not something that is surprising, or it's not something that I feel like, it's just like anything else, man. It's just like when you live in such a vain society, and when you live in such a society that is me centered and I centric, then diseases like bulimia, anorexia, and self-esteem and suicide, like, those things are not surprising when we have trained people to be self-centric.
We have become so to the point where we rely on some things, and then when it gets to the point where we have invested into all of that, then when that fizzles out, you're looking for a so-called the next high. You're looking for the next thing. There's no band-aid for burnout. Like, you have to have time for self. You have to put things into perspective. And that's some of the things that we're going to talk about today, also dealing with our personal life. I know for myself, and this is going to sound crazy, I always try to encourage myself and anybody to take you some time throughout your week to do something for self to help alleviate some of the burnout. Now, my thing is, I think I shared it with you before, I like to go to Waffle House. Now, I know Waffle House is not, some people may not view it as 5-star dining, but for me, it is 5-star dining. I can spend $8, get me an omelet, some hash browns, and a toast, and I take that moment to myself because you know as well as I know, when you work with people, you're a preacher, you're also an educator, and assistant principal. So I'm pretty sure, how many kids do you guys have at the school?
So our overall student attendance and enrollment, because attendance is something totally different, but enrollment, it hovers because you lose kids throughout the year, but we're hovering around 1,860 something odd students.
So 1,860 some students that you're in charge of have to make sure that the day-by-day things for them go good. And then you have to also come home and manage your own household with your own children and your wife. And then you got to make time for Eric.
Right.
There's a lot of maneuvering that you have to do inside of that. So I always encourage people. I know for myself, I had to get up a little bit earlier for my study, or either I stay up a little bit later. So I try to find those avenues where I can find any time where I can get in to keep myself from burning out. Because when you work in the public, I've been in the foster care system working. I work in my private practice. I'm always talking to people. And, if I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes I get tired of peopling with people.
Oh, sure.
Sometimes it gets to the point, and I'm like, man, I just want to take the therapist hat off for a minute, and I just want to throw it to the side, and I just let me be for a moment, because it seems like everyone has a question, like, oh, well, Kee will know because he's a therapist, or either, I know you've experienced it also with being a preacher, because a lot of times people will look at the preacher as the counselor. They're going to go to the preacher.
Sure.
And so what do you do for self, Eric? What do you do? How do you keep self from burnout?
And I'm gonna wait until the when the next episodes that we do, and I think we'll deal with religious burnout or spiritual burnout.
Yes, we're definitely gonna
deal with that. I'm gonna save the preacher part for that. But personally, what I do is because I know that there are only 24 hours in a day. Like there are only 24 hours in a day. You have 24, I have 24, everyone has 24, and how you we have to be very intentional on how we prioritize those 24. Because man, if you're not intentional with the things that you do, I'm reminded of Mark chapter 1, verse 36, where the Bible says that, a great while before day, talking about Jesus, he rose up a great while before day and he departed into a solitary place and there prayed. I know that I have to have that time to myself. So my day, because I do have a secular job, my day begins at 4:00 in the morning, because I'm not a work study type nighttime person. I don't have that kind of energy at night. I have my most energy in the morning. So I get up about 4:00. I study. I give a good hour of study to the word, and then my personal time for me is the gym. I'm at the gym at 5 in the morning. It's just, I'm by myself. I can think, I can release stress, through physical exercise, and it gets me, it gets my chemicals, balanced for the day in my body. I'm releasing endorphins. I'm happier. I feel I'm more energetic, so I can deal with, you think about 480 something students that I have, as far as 10th grade, being the 10th grade assistant principal. So I deal with about 400 plus students a day. And so, and just dealing with just the world of public education, and public society and teenagers and teachers and managing adults. And like you said, just people, having to deal with people every day. So my time is that 4 to 6 o'clock, that 4 to 5 study and prayer. And then at 5, to 6. And then, I head off to work and man, I'm just, people said I walk around like I own the place, because I'm always smiling. I'm always uplifting. I'm always looking at the better side of things, because I've had that time to deal with myself. And then when I get home for the day, I'm home. I love that. So when I get home, I don't have to get home, pick up my daughter from school, get home, change clothes, go back to the gym, then try to get home and then try to study that night. No, my family deserves that time. So that's why I sacrifice that early morning time. And some people, when I tell people, and people ask me these very same questions, man, how do you do it? And I tell them how I do it. Oh, I can't do that. Well, you can. We all have the same 24 hours. That's what's important to me. Do I necessarily want to get up at 4:00 in the morning? No. Do I want to do it? No. But do I do it because I understand the benefits of it? Yes, I do it, and I'm intentional about it, and I make sure it's done, and it becomes routine, and that way it keeps me from burning out.
Man, you said a mouthful there. We have a brother who has accused you and I of being vampires, because he can text at 5 in the morning and we respond. I told him we have to. It's a sacrifice,
right?
And go ahead.
We're not gonna name names, because Tevin Mayberry might get mad at us. Yeah, but anyway,
yeah, he'll definitely be listening. He'll definitely listen.
He'll enjoy that.
Yeah, I tell you, because that's the thing that I found out about myself to avoid the burnout. And man, you made a very great point about your nighttime life. I've talked to so many people who will say, well, man, I try to study at night and do this or do this after daytime and this, and after the world has set in, you got to make that time for family. Especially now, if you're a single person, or if you're dating, you do things a little bit differently. But so when we look at burnout from the different aspects of, if I'm single if I'm dating, if I have children, all of it, it comes a little bit different. But I like to hear the things that you do to keep yourself together, because exercise is one of the big things that can help you avoid burnout. If you're healthy and you're working out, you're doing what you have to do, you're less likely to feel those angst of the world when it comes to the burnout. Now again, it still is there. We're not going to be able to just throw burnout away just because we exercise, but our bodies feel a lot better when you're doing what you have to do, or even getting an adequate amount of sleep, because burnout can lead to fatigueness. And one of the biggest things that I see from the clients who I work with who are dealing with burnout, their anxiety levels are through the roof. Because when you're burnt out, you know what? You're looking for the next fire. Like you just put out fires. There's never a moment of I just feel good, because you're looking for the next fire. Your anxiety is up. And when you deal with anxiety keeps you in a hypervigilant state to where either I'm always going to be in fight or flight. Our bodies don't need to be like that. And when we're burnt out, that's what's going on. We're fighting. We're trying to find out exactly what is going on inside of our mental. And so I tell for you guys listening and watching, take some time out for self. Like, what do you do to prevent burnout? Because in your personal life, you can read, work out. I'm not against television. You can get your television, as Eric said earlier, but don't go and binge a whole Netflix series in 8 hours and don't do nothing else. That may be a little bit of relaxed time. Some days I do wish I can sit in the bed and watch I Love Lucy all day and not have to do anything. Right. But unfortunately, we live in the real world. Mm-hmm. When I think about the Bible, and when I look at it from the standpoint of Proverbs, we've been doing a great study on the book of Proverbs. And I'll tell you, man, Proverbs has really been a rich study, as you read about how, this author is writing to his son. Presumably, I'll always say for some of the Proverbs, we have a king who's writing to his son, trying to keep himself together. And when you look at a lot of the things that he talks about, one of my favorite things to help dealing with burnout, and one of my favorite passages of scripture, I should say, Proverbs chapter 6, talking about the ant and the sluggard. Mm-hmm. I love to look at that, because I'm going to tell you something that really, really, really makes us burn out. Procrastination. Man, in school, when I was doing papers, I was never the person, if the paper was due December 4th, December 3rd, I was working on it. Right. Because you know what? I work better under pressure. That's what I'm telling myself.
That's what we all say.
We always say, look, this is when I'm the best. I'm Kobe. I'm Jordan. Put me in the last shot. That's me. But you know what? That stuff like that, it deteriorates you. Mm-hmm. It breaks you down mentally. Because guess what? You're going to keep doing that same thing over and over again. Procrastination needs to be avoided in order for us to avoid burnout, because procrastination will lead to burnout.
Right. Well, just like you stated, from an education perspective, studies have been done. You students and parents will, and it's a real thing. Test anxiety is a real thing, but it's been proven by studies that the best deterrent or the best remedy for test anxiety is preparation. Like, period. Like it doesn't matter the other things you put in place for test anxiety, breathing and breathing is good. Calming yourself down, bring your heart rate down. That's good as you're taking a test, but there is nothing like being prepared for a test. Like, if you have studied and you have studied well ahead of time, and even the Bible speaks about, because in Ephesians chapter 5, Paul says, redeeming the time because the days are evil, Ephesians 5:15 and following. There's no promise to the procrastinator.
It is not.
Like, there's no promise to you. Preparedness is God has always smiled upon being prepared, putting yourself in position to take advantage of opportunities, decreasing your stress levels. All those things are biblical. And just like you stated, when you procrastinate, you simply invite stress.
You do.
Like, you just invite stress and anxiety.
Anytime we are unprepared, you don't know what's going on. Like you said, if I know I have a geography test, and if I haven't studied, guess what? it's gonna weigh on me. It's gonna have me feeling a certain way. Preparedness, being prepared is the best thing that we can do. And again, sometimes preparation looks a little bit different.
Right.
Some people, are meticulously preparers. Like I will say this, and it's we get a lot of emails from the show. Make it plain. But before I even open my eyes, Eric has already responded to 20 emails, and I have to give him the credit on that because Eric is very meticulous like that when it comes to being prepared. Like he checks his email a lot and he's ready to go, already on the go. And I'm like, man, you know what? It's a beautiful thing because again, preparation. Already up, I already know what's going on. Having that time. And preparing also, like scheduling things, also helps to remove burnout. I tell couples or in just whoever, scheduling will help you the most. If you have to even schedule down to, hey, me and my wife are going to go out on our date night, put it on the calendar. If I got to study for this, put it on the calendar. Journaling, I journal. I'm gonna say this. I'm a big journaler. Journaling has helped me reduce anxiety, and it also helps me to get my feelings out so that I can go back and look and see what I need to do and what I've been working on. And it helps me to deal with burnout. There's something about putting that pen to that paper and just getting it out, and it just is so therapeutic to me. And I notice when I'm burnt out or when I'm heading toward burnout, I can tell it in my tone, I can tell it in my actions, I can tell it in everything. And so I have to keep that journal out. And not only journal, the first thing I do, and I encourage everybody every morning, I pray every morning, pray every evening, pray before I go to bed. Keep a constant prayer life to help also with burnout. Because again, being able to stay connected to the source. I mentioned Proverbs 6 talking about the ant and the slugger. I just want to read a little bit of that and just to have the mindset. Proverbs 6 and verse 6 says, "Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provided her meat in the summer and gathered her food in the harvest. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travaileth, and thy want as an armed man." The ant, I love the way that the proverb writer details the ant. Having no overseer or guide, guess what? The ant was prepared.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember, there was a cartoon I can remember as clear as day when I was a kid, but it was the turtle and the rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
And the turtle was doing all the work and the rabbit played all the time. And then guess what? Wintertime came and he was found without. The same thing is true about us. If we are not prepared, burnout, all these things will seep into our personal life and can cause a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. It can affect friendships. It can affect work relationships, your work in general. So
right,
it's something that definitely needs to be appreciated. Learning how to alleviate those things and work toward being better.
When you think about the sluggard and the ant in this proverb, it would be a mistake to think that the ant didn't rest, or to think that the sluggard, that if you rest at all, you're going to be considered a sluggard, right? If you notice the colonies of ants, like they know their roles. They know when they're working, when they're resting. Like they know what their roles are. And so the ant doesn't just go to his own detriment, but we understand, because like my wife will tell you, she laughs at me. And my mother would tell you this too. My mother passed away last year, but she would tell you this too. I've always been a napper. Like I will take a nap. Like I will take a nap, and I will not feel bad about it. Like I took one yesterday. I will take a nap if I'm sleeping and I can do it. I'm gonna take me a nap. And I need that nap to recharge. And I don't apologize for it. But Jesus was asleep. On the sea when the ship encountered that that windstorm and it beat on the ship. Matthew chapter 8. The disciples were afraid, and they came to Jesus, and he asleep. Right? Even our Lord understood rest. He understood that he needed to rest, and so this proverb is great. It's about the person who is a sluggard and is not fervent in being diligent and taking care of their matters and being prepared like they need to, but just being lazy. There's a difference between being lazy and resting. Like, there's a difference.
Big difference.
Your body needs to rest. We know, like, every night, or at least I know I do, and I think the vast majority of the audience would fall into this, into the same reasoning. Every night I plug my watch. I put my watch on a charger, and I put my phone on charger. Every night. Why do I do that?
Because you got to be ready for the next day.
Got to be ready. It got to be recharged. Like, if I don't recharge my watch and my phone, they're going to die on me, and I need them. Like, I need them. Like you said, man, my calendar, everything's on my phone. My text messages, my email, my phone stays going off. Like, so I need my phone. So if I don't charge it, if I don't charge my phone and my watch, then they die, right? They die when I need them. Like, your body is the same way. Like, so we understand this about our body. We put gas in our cars because we don't want them to run out of gas because they need. So we charge our phones and our watches. Our bodies need to be charged. We need to rest when we need to rest. Like you said, man, getting good nights of sleep. People ask me when I tell them I get up at 4 a.m. and say, "What time you go to bed?" I force my eyes to be closed by 10 o'clock, like at the latest. I have to force my eyes to be closed by 10 o'clock. And so, but I know I need to rest. If I need to take a nap, like, I will take a nap. And my wife, she laughs. She's like, well, my wife's not a napper, but I am. I've been a napper since a kid.
I tell people in my private practice when they come see me, and a lot of the girls at the office, they'll joke because, my room is always dim. If nobody's in there, I'm on the couch sleep.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, you sleep on your couch, man. I'm in there knocked out. I'm talking about calling the hogs because I'm gonna get, if that's the only time I get to nap. Having 7 kids at home, I can't nap at home because
Right.
somebody's always there,
Right.
to interrupt that nap. But I think this is a great foundation for us to lay and to begin it. Like, looking at our personal lives. We're humans, but we need to make sure that we avoid those things. Avoid burnout at all costs. Because, again, if we're burnt out, what good are we going to be for ourselves or for any others? Well, we only have a few more moments and we'll conclude. And I hope you tune in for our next episode where we will discuss about burnout in our professional lives. Hope to see you there. Give a listen and give a share. Thank you so much for tuning in. Anything we talk about on this podcast is for your knowledge. This is not information that I'm not diagnosing anyone, but I hope that the conversation opens up to where, again, we can all seek to improve our own mental health.